With us on the broadcast this minute is Mohammad Shafiq, broadcaster and television presenter, joining us live from Manchester. Thanks very much for being here with us. These might be local polls, but they're being seen as a referendum, the last major elections before the general elections slated for 2024. If you can take us through to what extent the Partygate scandal will be dominating the list of issues at hand. The cost of living crisis is the other major factor that could sway the voters on either side.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary election because Boris Johnson has had to face multiple challenges from getting elected in 2019 and a promise to get Brexit done. He got Brexit done. And then we had the pandemic. And then obviously recently we've had the illegal war and aggression, military aggression in Ukraine. However, the Partygate is something which is playing up on the doorstep time and time again. If you listen to the pollsters, if you listen to the commentators, and if you listen to the Conservative Party's own candidates, Partygate is coming up again. You recall, as it was, across the world, lockdowns and the people who made the rules have to obey the rules. And that will be a deciding factor, I think, with voters who support the Conservative Party and whether they're going to switch to the Labour Party or the other opposition parties, or actually not vote at all and stay at home. The polls are suggesting that the Labour Party on a good night will probably take around 100 plus seats, with the Conservatives losing up to 600. And depending on what happens in some of those London boroughs like Wandsworth and Westminster, it's a real chance it could be a bloodbath for the Conservative Party. And that rests, if you like, with what's happening in Downing Street. You alluded to it earlier, Molly, around Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party not actually having a successor. And Rishi Sunak, who is the Chancellor, obviously his stock has fallen in the last few weeks due to his wife's non-dom status. So actually there isn't anybody behind the scenes who could take it up. And that gives him a bit of a breathing space. But I think these elections will determine what happens after in terms of what the Conservative Party will do. Because one final thing, Molly, is that the Conservative Party have always been ruthless when it comes to removing their leaders if they cost them votes. And this election will be a barometer of indication as to if that is going to be a success.
Right. Will Boris Johnson's attempts to play peacemaker as far as the Ukraine war is concerned have any impact on his prospects, according to you?
I think on foreign policy and on Ukraine, there's lots of support across the country. The government's been commended, as has the opposition. There's a pretty unified position here in the UK in support of Ukraine and speaking up and standing up against Russia. There is concern around the Ukrainian refugees and their visa process being delayed. But I think on the whole, people will, credit Boris Johnson and his leadership on this particular issue. But the problem is people are looking at their pay packets. They're looking at the cost of living, prices going up, inflation is the highest it's been for 30 years, and looking to the government for action. And so far that hasn't happened. If I could just talk a bit about the opposition, the Labour Party, which is, as you said, 5 to 8% ahead of the polls, hasn't articulated what their strategy would be if they were to win the next election. And I think they need to put some meat on the bone around that. And also what they need to do is be clear about the fallout from Partygate and the questions around Keir Starmer and the allegations that he himself was in a meeting with over 30 people in Durham. So there's lots of questions in the newspapers around that as well today.
We're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for being here on WION World is One and sharing those perspectives.
Thank you, Molly.
I'm talking about the